So this is day 10, 11? Day 11. Day 11 of learning Winter Fantasy. The goal is just to get through to the end of the piece today, I think. We don't have too much left, at least for this process, and then we'll go and polish it tomorrow. First of all, as usual, just gonna play through everything I've got so far, make sure I still remember everything. Well, obviously I'm not going to remember everything, just to see how much of it I still remember, and then yeah, we'll work from there. Try better read. Probably should have tested the read before I started the video, but you know. Sure, this one will do for now. most of it was pretty good. The end there got a little bit away from me. I'm still not liking some of the transitions, especially with the fermatas and rests. Some of them are too long, some of them are too short. But I just made a mental note of those. We'll go back and revisit those when we're polishing, I think. But for now, we're gonna keep going. So for these two bars, well, the second bar in particular, when there's one note linked to the multiphonic, there's a multiphonic fingering. And then the bottom note is an F and is carried over from a held F. And I'm going to make the artistic decision here to, well, not artistic decision, but the executive decision, a little bit artistic, to play that F with the multiphonic fingering and just not have the top note speak. So. Okay, if done right, I think this is a little more effective than because you can't always guarantee that on the day of the performance that your reed is going to do all the right things, and I think the idea here is to not have that lower note change pitch. So if you're changing fingering, more likely than not, that lower pitch is going to be affected, and it won't be the exact same note as before. Whereas if you use the same fingering and you just dampen that high note so that only the lower note speaks. So yeah, that way there is a much higher chance that that lower note will be the same, same intonation. Okay, that the intonation isn't going to change. So I'm going to make that change, and I'll probably email Eric and see what he thinks about that. Hopefully he likes it. Hopefully he doesn't tell me to just keep it the way it's written. How do I do this? Alright, I'll just make a note for now. I'll change it later. Alright, so this section, it's a restatement of the first theme, the opening theme, more or less, with a little variation. And it's a boldly stated statement, indicated by boldly, obviously. And the only thing is that it adds some multiphonics in there. And the restatement, well, first you state the phrase, and it ends with a multiphonic. There's an added grace note, and then the second two bars gets transposed up a little bit. A fourth, a third? What was it before? Yeah, up a fourth. Seems like just a exact. Oh, not quite. There's no grace note in here, and then it ends in a multiphonic as well. Here the same thing with this multiphonic. It goes into a sustained note from the multiphonic, so that one it's a little bit easier, and also has a crescendo, so it's a little bit easier to just keep the same fingering rather than use the normal fingering for that note, which is a D. So you can hear how there is a very noticeable intonation difference in this case, so I'm just gonna keep the multiphonic fingering. Pretty sure that's what he meant anyways. Usually when he has a multiphonic slur to a single note, he means to use the same fingering. But in the other case, the one I was talking about earlier, where it was a sustained note into a multiphonic, he had the multiphonic fingering on the multiphonic instead of on the sustained note. I'll just show you what I mean. So, where is it? This is the first one I was talking about, where it's a sustained note into the multiphonic, and the fingering is listed above the multiphonic and not the sustained note. Whereas here, you have the multiphonic slurred into a sustained note, and in this case, most of the time I've seen in Mandat's music, you just keep using the multiphonic fingering instead of switching to a regular fingering, and which is what I did kind of instinctively anyways, whereas the one with the F, I'm making the conscious decision to use the multiphonic fingering to play the sustained note before it. Stylistically speaking, there's not too much to it. I think just following the dynamic written here will do most of the heavy lifting for you. So I'm just going to play through this section a couple times. multiphonics, the tendency is to kind of decrescendo into them just because multiphonics are a little bit easier when they're softer. But in this case, I'm making the decrescendo isn't written in until the multiphonic, so I have to remember to not start decrescendoing before we get to the multiphonic, and just working on connecting from the note to the multiphonic. The multiphonic doesn't have to speak exactly at the same time, but it should be relatively close. Okay, so I liked what I did, so I kept going. This ending, I'm trying to wrap my head around it. Not too sure what to make of this as of right now. After that multiphonic that we were working on, the last thing we were doing, it has the expression marking simple. I don't think what I did was simple at all. It got a little too complicated. So I'm just gonna try that section, and I'm just gonna do it very as simple as I can, for a lack of a better word. Yeah. So here is poco agitato, so a little bit more agitated. So let's just work on the simple stuff. The simple. So I'm gonna see if I can make it even more simple. So I want to, here my primary concern immediately with the marking simple is to differentiate it with calmly from the very beginning. Because that can very easily creep into the same territory of just playing it almost flat, but there's a difference between calm and simple. Calm is deliberate. Simple to me is like minimalistic. You're not adding anything fancy into it. Whereas calmly, you have to make the artistic decision of playing it calmly. Whereas simple is very plain. Yeah, I hope that is a somewhat understandable explanation. But yeah. I got it. Almost MIDI like. I think that's what I'm going for. Obviously, sound better than MIDI, but in terms of expression, very MIDI like. Okay, so here, moving forward, but a decrescendo and also a descending line. So it's difficult to do those two things together. Moving forward, well, those three things together. So the decrescendo and descending line, that's very natural. But to do it with moving forward feeling is a little bit counterintuitive, because when we see a descending line, especially with a decrescendo, our natural tendency is to pull back a bit. So I have to fight that instinct to remember to keep moving forward through this without making it seem unnatural. So that's what I'm gonna be working on right now. The poco agitato, I think, was a little too much on the molto side, but I think I'll leave that for now. Okay, so first I took out the decrescendo and just working with moving forward and descending line. Um, Moving forward, I'm just going to rush ever so slightly. That will give me enough of the moving forward feeling here, especially when it goes to when it goes from eighth notes to septuplets over two beats. No, over one beat. Oh, I was actually playing it too slow then. It's gonna seem a lot quicker when we get to that subtuplet. So I'm not too worried about making the eighth notes seem a lot faster. Just a little bit rushed, I think, is enough. So yeah, I've been playing that rhythm wrong the whole time. Learned it wrong, so now I have to fix it. So it's very important to learn it correctly the first time, but can't promise that we don't make mistakes when we're learning. And on that note, going back to that same thought, I don't like listening to recordings. I mentioned this. I think either in the first video or the intro video. I don't like listening to recordings before I've made up my own mind about it, because I don't like being influenced by recordings, especially with contemporary music. I like to analyze it for myself, have my own thoughts about it before I listen to what other people's interpretations of this piece is, or are. So yeah, that's one reason why I didn't catch the wrong rhythm, is because I haven't actually listened to the recording in an analytical way. So with the score, trying to listen to what the other performers are doing with this piece. I've heard the piece before, but obviously you're not going to remember details like this just from hearing it once or twice. So yeah, that's another reason why I learned this rhythm wrong. I know I'm making excuses now, but after today, is when I'm going to be listening to recordings as well, because after today I will be done making my own musical decisions regarding this piece. So anyways, enough chit chat, get back to practicing. So I'm happy with the moving forward and the decrescendo descending line now. The next two bars pretty straightforward. Keep moving forward. The crescendo helps. The contour helps. And now we have very deliberately, but with tenuto, we're very deliberately. I usually think deliberate and accents go together. But in this case, there are no accents. They're just tenuto. Da da da. So I think the deliberate here is referring to the note length rather than the articulation. So yeah. I still like to hear more. This is gonna sound weird. I like to hear longer note but more separation at the same time. So longer note obviously explains itself, but in this case, more separation. I don't mean more space between notes, but more definite end of notes and the beginning of next note without accenting. So I'm gonna be trying a couple different things to see if I can achieve that. I'm trying to get right is the staccato note that is tied over from the previous whole note before the next 3/8 notes, which are the deliberately tenuto notes. So I want to get that staccato in the note before all these tenutos, so that there's a very distinct difference here, which will help with making it seem even more deliberate. So here, obviously I'm pretty happy with how I did the deliberately section, so I kept going. The next couple bars is with maximum intensity. Once again, deliberate and intense, kind of similar, but you still have to find a way to differentiate them. So I know what I'm going to do for deliberately. Now I need to find something similar yet different for intense. So that's what I'm going to be trying now. And once again, this is tenuto, not accent. So I want to avoid using accents to give the illusion of intense. I'm trying to think of different ways I can play this right now. I'm drawing a blank, but so the easiest things to do is change tone color, change dynamic, and change articulation. Two of them we are pretty much not applicable in this situation. Dynamic, it's one dynamic level higher than the previous two bars at mezzo, at fortissimo. The previous statement is at forte. There's a couple fortissimo accents and fortissimo subito piano on the held note there, but contrasting with the deliberate, it is one dynamic level higher. So we can't really do anything about that. We can make it two dynamics level higher, because since there's nothing louder than this, but we're already playing pretty loud here, so it has to be louder than the previous section. That is not an option. Articulation, I already explained that I don't want to change. I don't want to stray too far away from what's on the page here. Mandat is a good composer. He knows what he's doing and he knows what he wants. So especially with his music, I try to stick to what's on the page as much as I can. So that leaves us with tone color. With greater intensity, the most obvious thing I can think of is to have an even more laser focused sound. But when you're playing that loud, or when you're playing at a forte level, that kind of tone quality already comes pretty naturally. So I have to find a way to make it even more and noticeably more, which is very difficult. So I'm trying to think if there's another way I can portray intensity through tone color that is not focus of the sound, like more focus, less, more diffuse, that kind of stuff. So I'm just trying to think of other ways. Maybe a little bit of vibrato, because vibrato is a good way to add tension, and tension creates intensity, right? So maybe a little bit of vibrato in the right place might do the trick. So I think the trick here is to not have this be more intense, but the held note before it be less intense. So I think, and with vibrato, it's more effective to do it on long notes. With eighth notes, you're doing vibrato. That's just crazy talk, right? So I think the trick here is to use vibrato to lessen the intensity of the held note previously, and then come back to this intense, laser focused, and very well projected sound here. Yeah, so I think that's the way to go, since it's the same idea as we've all heard this as students, is when you're trying to exaggerate a dynamic, you can, for example, if you're going from a soft dynamic to a loud dynamic, there's two ways you can make that loud dynamic loud. One is obviously to play louder. The other one is to make the previous a little bit softer so that it seems louder. So same case, same kind of idea here. A little less intensity right before it will give the illusion of more intensity after. And I like way more piano in that forte piano there. Yeah. And I think the vibrato right before the maximum intensity, I think, works. Because just when you're doing the vibrato, it does give a little less intensity to the sound. Yeah, it's hard to explain, but from the way I did it, I like the way it was done. So I'm gonna do it. I like the vibrato, but I don't like the way I did the vibrato that time. It doesn't need to be very obvious. The best is if you can't even tell that you're using vibrato. That, I think, is the best way to relieve tension, to relieve the intensity from the previous passage. So I think I'm doing a little too much. I'm trying a little too hard here. But it still has to be deliberate. want to do more of the forte piano, I'm being very, very careful to not let the note go sharp when I drop down to a piano, because that will get me into trouble doing a crescendo. Crescendos naturally want to go flat, so I have to try really, really hard to keep the pitch high. And if that pitch is already sharp from the forte piano, I'm gonna bite a hole through my lip. That one was good. Okay, so the good thing about this ending here, very slowly and freely, and it's 4 piece, pianissimo. Okay, so the great thing about this is part of Mandat's brilliancy too, is he knows at this soft dynamic, the most effective way to play is to sneak in. But the difficult thing about sneaking in is it's very, very difficult to control exactly when the note speaks. So, how do we get around this? Very slowly and freely. However long it takes that first note to speak, that will set up your quote-unquote tempo for the rest of the 2 bars. If it speaks a little bit sooner, you can play it a little bit quicker. Takes a little longer to speak, you can play a little bit slower, have every note be a little bit longer. And also it's very slowly and freely, so it doesn't have to be metronomically correct. So this expression marking really, really helps with the dynamic level and just getting exactly what you want. And if one of the notes afterwards doesn't speak quite exactly in time, you can also kind of fudge around with the timings because it's freely. So I really like this ending. It lets me to go for that most extreme expression without having to worry about the physical instrument itself not doing exactly what I want at the exact moment that I want it to. So brilliant writing. Anyways, so I think that more or less covers the end of it. I think I'll just play through once what I did today and then just call it a day. Actually, I'm going to back up a bit to practice that little technical part from yesterday and also just to practice the transition. this is the other thing I forgot to mark in. I want that second bit, the second 2 bars of that restatement to be a little bit softer. It is a decrescendo into this, but I've been doing a decrescendo and then starting at forte again. But I think it should start at mezzo forte, especially since it doesn't do a decrescendo before the multiphonic, and the multiphonic speaks a lot better at mezzo forte. I'm just gonna do all of that again. I didn't like a lot of it. Alright, most of that was pretty good. So I'll leave it there for today. Tomorrow, or I might take a break tomorrow, but next time we'll start polishing everything and putting everything together. Yeah, so that's it for today, and I'll see you next time.